today I'm going to work with you on one of the easiest crochet bags I've ever made. I love this shape, but believe it or not, this is just a rectangle folded into this shape. So if you can crochet a rectangle, you can definitely do this bag. And then we're going to do a unique and fun handle here, and this is going to be amazing. Now you'll notice that I have a little bit of hardware. I did find this on Amazon and I like it so that when I'm wearing this bag, it kind of helps secure everything on the inside. And if you want, you can also line this bag with fabric as well for extra durability. But this is a nice stitch that you're not going to have things really falling through. Nothing's going to get through these stitches. You can throw a pencil or pen in there and it will be fine. This is one of my favorites, shockingly, even though it's so easy. So to work this bag, you'll obviously need a crochet hook. We're going to be using the 4mm G hook today, a yarn needle to weave in those ends, scissors to fasten them off. Of course, if you want any type of hardware, you can get creative with that, but it's not 100% necessary. And then we're going to need some yarn. And I did this bag off camera because the color obviously isn't the best color to do a video with. So today I'm going to do this bag again, but I'm going to use 3 colors just to kind of show that we can mix it up and we can do, different types of styling with one bag pattern just by mixing up the colors. So I have some colors in my repertoire here. This is a comfy worsted weight yarn. I love worsted weight comfy. It's not scratchy, so it's great. It has a great drape, but it's still nice and durable for something like a bag. And the colors are incredible for a cotton yarn. So this is 100% cotton, or 75% Pima cotton and 25% acrylic. So acrylic kind of gives that the nice structure as well. This comes in 109 yards, and we are going to go ahead and do a little bit of striping and color changes, but it's all the same stitch pattern. We're just making a rectangle. This is going to be so fun. If you are a beginner crocheter, you can definitely do this project. So let's jump right in. Now this is a very wide rectangle and I will be doing stripes and talking about how to do that. But to show you the stitch pattern, I'm going to use the color Parchment and put the ivy and the marlin aside for just a moment. We're going to do a little swatch so that we know that we've got the right gauge and tension such. If you want to, I don't always say this, but where it's a bag, its gauge is not as critical. If you want to jump right into this, you can, and you can follow along with this little stitch tutorial. Now, if you're doing the bag, you'll start by chaining 135 stitches. So that's 134 stitches plus a turning chain. But this can be done in any multiples of 2 plus 1 for that turning chain. So I'm going to do 21 chains to get started on this swatch. I just want to show you how to work this. So we're going to start by doing a single crochet stitch in every single stitch across. This is how we're going to start the bag too. So I'm going to in the second chain from the hook, I'm going to tighten down that turning chain. I like to tighten down turning chains, and I'm going to single crochet into each stitch across. So this will be a total of 20 stitches for this setup row. Now, after single crocheting into each stitch across, we are simply going to turn our work and do a turning chain. So I'm going to chain 1, and then we're going to single crochet into the first stitch in the row. So we've single crocheted. And then in the next stitch, we are going to single crochet and then double crochet into that same stitch. And then we're going to skip the next stitch, and in the next, single crochet and double crochet into that same stitch. And we're going to keep working that across until we get to the last 2 stitches in the row. So we're going to skip one and single crochet and double crochet. So we're just going to keep doing that across the rest of this row. So we've skipped one, and now we're going to single crochet, double crochet, and skip the next. And we're going to work that until we get to the very last stitch in this row. So it's a really easy stitch repeat with a lot of texture, but you're just working single crochet and double crochet stitches. So we've already skipped this one, and we're going to single crochet and double crochet in the same and skip the next. Now, as we get to the last stitch in this row, because we just skipped the next, we're simply going to single crochet into the last stitch of this row. And we can work that across, like I said, if you're following along, you're started into your bag, you've worked that across 134 stitches. So now I'm going to be turning my work again. And this is our repeat row. So this is a really, really easy repeat. So we are going to start by chaining one, and we're going to single crochet into the very first stitch. And then we are going to be doing our repeat. So into the next, we're going to single crochet and then double crochet and skip the next stitch, and then single crochet and double crochet into the same and skip the next stitch. So we'll be working that all the way across until we get to that last stitch in this row. And now that we are to the last stitch in the row, we will simply single crochet. And that is going to be our repeat for every single row. It's such a textured stitch, easy stitches, easy repeat. So one more time, let's talk about how to do that repeat. We're going to chain one and single crochet into the first stitch of this row. Then in the next stitch, we will single crochet and double crochet all into that same stitch and skip the next. And we'll repeat that, the single crochet and double crochet and skipping the next until we get to the last stitch of the row where we will single crochet into that last stitch. We can already see this is starting to pack a lot of texture, and this is how we will continue to work our rows to create this large rectangle for this bag. Now, when it comes to doing the color work, I'll come back and show you what it looks like with those stripes, but I have done a chart for this where we are changing colors sometimes every 2 rows and sometimes every 6 for the way that the color's set up. But you can do it however you want. But I chose to change colors every 2 rows. That way, if you wanted to carry your yarn up one side, you could. Don't have to. If you like a little bit of a cleaner look, you can fasten off and weave in your ends. Now this is the size of fabric that I have made. This fabric is approximately 30 inches by 10 inches. So if you were to adjust this bag to be a different size, you're doing a 3-to-1 ratio. And that's how when we fold it, it works out. Now I have done the striping and I have woven in the ends. The reason why is when we fold it, if some of those edges, we carry them up the side, they may show. However, if you do want to carry them up the side, that is still fine because you could do a quick single crochet border around the opening of the bag, and that will cover up and hide any of those strands you had covered up, carried up the side. Now, the next thing I want to talk about too is the color pattern that I did was one that I chose, but there can be so many options that I have charts and inspiration within the pattern for other color combinations, but obviously use what your favorite colors are. Now our next steps for this bag is the folding. This is the really fun part. This is where we take a rectangle and turn it into a bag. So this is how we're going to do it. We're going to take this top left corner and we are going to fold this down and make almost like a triangle shape here. So we're folding it down. We're actually going to turn this into a parallelogram. Then we're going to take this bottom right corner and we are going to fold it up, matching up those edges. And now we have a parallelogram. And the next thing we're going to do is imagine a dotted line across here. We're going to fold across that dotted line on that square. So I'm going to grab this side, keeping it folded. I'm going to fold it down just like so. And then there's our bag. We just rotate it around and look at that. This is the shape that the rectangle makes, and that is a lot of fun. The other thing I want to point out is I didn't fasten off because now I'm already set up if I were going to use my hook or fasten off and use a yarn needle to seam right here. Now I love the look of doing the slip stitch seaming that's almost like a surface slip stitch seaming, and that's what this looks like. So I'm going to show you how to do that here with your crochet hook. But once again, this isn't that big of a deal. However you want to seam it, use your preferred method. Now, once you're happy with how everything's meeting up, you can go ahead and rotate this because we're going to be seaming from here down. So to rotate this upside down. And when you rotate this, if you find that your stitches aren't rotating the outside, it just makes it a little bit easier if they are. I can see the top of my stitches, they kind of rotate this way versus the other way they don't. You can unfold it, flip your fabric over, because there really is no wrong or right side to this, and fold it again the other way. It's the same fold, it just flips these out. So now that we have this place where we want it to be, and you want to make sure that these are lined up, I'm going to start by slip stitching these. And so the way I like to do it, I've chained one, is when it comes to surface slip stitching, sometimes it's a little bit tricky because our yarn's going to be coming up from underneath. So I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook into the stitch on the right side through the back loop only, working over the yarn. So the yarn's going to be underneath everything, then through the back loop of this side, and then yarn over and pull through. I'm going to zoom in a bit closer and do this again for you in just a minute, but I just want to get the main concepts here on side to side. Then I'm going to come to the left side here through the back loop and go to the right side of the next stitch in the back loop from top to bottom, yarn over and pull up that yarn through all the loops on the hook. And that's what's going to give this that nice surface slip stitch. So let's zoom in here and go over that again. So we're going to go to, I like alternating which one I start in. So we're going to go to the right side from top to bottom, the left side from top to bottom through the back loops only, yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook. And sometimes this takes a little bit of rotation of your hook. And why I like this one, splitting my yarn there, why I like the way to do this is because it leaves a nice line left and right of the slip stitches, and it's quite flat. So it's like a flat surface slip stitch. So we're going to go to the left side and then the right side and then yarn over and pull through all the loops. And then we'll go to the right side and then the left side, yarn over and pull through all of those loops. We'll keep doing this all the way down. As you get to the corner, it might feel a little bit tricky. You may not be able to keep your whole bag folded. You might just kind of have to open it up and get your hands in there. And we're going to be doing this on this side of the bag, and then we will fasten off and do the other side as well. Now that we've got the first side done, we're just simply going to flip this over, and now we just have to do the second seam and we're done doing the seaming. Now, if you want, you don't have to start from out here. You can start from this corner by joining your yarn. It might be a little bit easier. Once again, there's no right or wrong way on seaming on this. If you don't want to do this method because you find it a bit fiddly, you could go ahead and grab a yarn needle and do a mattress stitch. This is such a small detail. It's not going to make the biggest difference in this design. But I am going to continue to keep it consistent on this other side, and I'm going to do a surface slip stitch. I'm going to line these up, make sure it looks good. And then I will start at this corner where these stitches are matching up there. And then I'm going to do that same style of slip stitch. The first corner stitch might be a little bit hard because you're like working stitches right next to each other. But once you get past that, it gets much easier. It's really just getting your hook through the right strands the first time. You can grab your yarn. I'm just going to connect this and go. So now that I've got that first stitch done, it'll be much easier working the rest of it. And I'm not working into a tight corner here. I'm just working into across here to the opening. And then when you're done doing the seaming, weave in any ends. And the next thing we'll need to do is make the handle for this bag so that we can carry it around. So I'll keep doing that slip stitch all the way across here and get that seaming done. Now for the handle of this bag, we're going to be doing some fun puff stitches. And I really do think for this striped one, I want to go with a lighter color handle as well again, especially because it's much easier to go with the color that is up here because we'll be stitching it to the bag, and it's less noticeable with our stitches seaming it to the bag if it's the same color as these last rows. But on camera today, because it would be so difficult for me to show you that in ivory, we're going to do this in parchment so that we can see those stitches. Now, when it comes to this bag handle, we're going to start by doing a slip stitch and placing that onto our hook. And then we are going to chain 3. And I'm going to mention, make sure that you have enough of a tail end that you can comfortably stitch this handle to the bag. Now, in the very first chain from the hook, we are going to puff stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, enter that stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. And you want to pull it up to the height of the first loop on your hook. Then we're going to do that again. We're going to yarn over, insert into the stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. And one more time here. So we're going to yarn over, insert into that same chain stitch, and pull up that loop. So now we have 7 loops on our hook. We are going to yarn over and pull through 6 of those, and then yarn over and pull through the last 2 to finish off that puff stitch. I just like the way it makes the puff stitches look. Now we're going to rotate our work. We're going to turn our work, and we're going to turn it to the left, and we're working from the other side here. But we are going to be doing a puff stitch into this chain space now. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that chain space, yarn over, and pull up a loop. We're going to do that 2 more times until we have 7 loops on this hook. Now we will yarn over and pull through 6, and then yarn over and pull through the last 2. Now, if you want to do the puff stitch differently, you can yarn over and pull through all 7 and then chain, and that also tightens down the top of a puff stitch. Now, once again, we're going to rotate our work to the left, and now we have this space here that's between our 2 puff stitches. So I'm talking right here, this space between these 2 previous puff stitches that we've made. We're going to be working into that space. So we're going to yarn over, and we're making a puff stitch again. We're going to insert into that space between the last 2 puff stitches, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert into that space, pull up a loop, yarn over, and the last time, pull up a loop. And now we're simply going to finish off that puff stitch by pulling through the first 6, and then yarn over and pull through the last 2. Now that is what we're going to repeat to make this handle. That's it. I know it felt like it may have been complicated starting out on where you place your hook, but this is all we're going to be doing, is repeating that last step. So we're going to turn to the left, turn our work. We're going to be working into that space between our last 2 puff stitches. So yarn over, insert your hook into the space between the last 2 puff stitches, and then make a puff stitch. And that's it. And we do that again. We're going to turn our work, yarn over, working between the last 2 puff stitches that we did. We're going to make a puff stitch. And that's how we get that braided look with these puff stitches. It's really pretty to do and quite easy. So we're going to turn again, and we're going to do a puff stitch between the last 2 puff stitches that we made. And I did approximately 58 puff stitches for the bag handle, but this is personal preference. If you want it to sit lower on your body, higher on your body, you're either going to do more or less puff stitches to get the length of that handle. So I'm going to keep on working on this for a little while so you can see it a little bit longer. Now, once you have the strap the length that you want, leaving a tail end so that we can sew it to the bag, go ahead and fasten off, and then you'll want to grab your yarn needle. And now you're simply going to take one of the corners of your bag, and we're going to stitch this to it. So I've got the end here. I'm just going to loop through to secure that very last stitch. And now I'm going to put it on the edge of the bag, just like so. And we're just going to stitch back and forth and stitch it to the corners of each side. So it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just making sure that, you know, it works as a handle, that it's really fastened on there. But our stitches are really hidden well in this textured stitch. So you don't have to stress too much over seaming, especially when using the same color. I'm simply going to get this on there, and I'm going to sew back and forth quite a few times to make sure that it's secure. And then I'll weave in that end and fasten off. And once that first side is done, I'm just going to make sure it's not twisted. We want to make sure that the handle's not twisted. at all. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, securing the handle to the other side. Now, I just want to take a moment to also talk about the bag itself in terms of stretch. So, cotton is a great yarn to use for a bag because it doesn't have as much stretch and it has a lot of strength compared to your average acrylic yarn. If you do want to line this bag, however, the best way to do so is to cut a piece of fabric the dimensions of our rectangle before we folded it. Now, if you want to finish off those edges of the fabric first, please do so. But basically, you're just going to take the same 30-inch by 10-inch fabric swatch, fold it and seam it just like this, and then simply stick it inside here and stitch along the top edges to secure it in place. So adding a lining for this type of bag is really easy too because the lining itself is just a simple rectangle. Now this last part is completely optional, but I found these cute little closure fasteners on Amazon that I thought fit really well with this bag. So I am going to stitch these on. So the side that I want to deem, I guess you could say the front, even though this is completely reversible, you would sew on this part, and then this part will be sewn on the other side, and then this folds over and will snap in place. So I'm going to get my yarn needle and thread, and I'm going to sew these pieces onto the bag. I really hope you've enjoyed this really fun tutorial on this just a rectangle bag. It's really simple to make and looks amazing in a solid color or trying out your favorite colors in stripes. Either way, it's a beginner level because of that rectangle and then learning a new skill with this strap that is fun to do. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. Be sure to hit subscribe for some more fun patterns soon.